Guys, my name is Rai. Today I wanted to walk you through how I did my plus 18 workshop on my bench in Steam Hunter. I'm going to show you all the tips and tricks that you need to get through some of the more complicated pulls in this dungeon, how to hold threat on the first pull gather, and how to skip the drill after the first boss. I'm going to show you all the things that you need when playing bench in Steam Hunter in this key, and as well just some general tanking tips to get through this kind of tricky dungeon. I think for the most part, the difficulty level in this dungeon is probably middle of the pack. I wouldn't say there's nothing too complicated, but the skips can be very punishing. And if you've struggled before on the first pull with threats, I'm going to show you the exact cadence that you need to be able to sustain yourself and make sure that more difficult classes like elemental shamans or unholy death knights won't pull threat off of you. I'm very deliberate in my choice of buttons in the first pull, kind of like you'll probably recognize some from my other videos like Cinder Metery. In this first pull, I'm going to be taking a little bit of time to kind of pause and walk through the exact sequence and order of operations that I do to tag each mob in this pull. Hopefully this will alleviate some of the questions that you might have, and I think too when I've been playing some other classes like my Preservation Evoker or my Druid, I've seen a lot of Ancient Demon Hunters just suffer to struggle to hold threats, or they cheat it right off the bat. In this key, I did not use cheat death a single time, and you'll probably notice as well we actually had an augmentation evoker in here, so a little bit different from the past things that we've kind of been playing with. But we are trying to play around with aug for fun, and as I get through this video, I'll comment a little bit more on it and my thoughts on aug and some of the things we might see in the future. As I pause the video here, you're going to notice that there's 4 packs in this room. There's one at the front, one on the right, one in the back, and one on the left. Your imperative, and similar to Cinderbrew, is that you do not want to use fire sigils before these are gathered. Remember, I'm not running Spirit Bomb, so I have no uncapped frailty, so my threat's a little bit weaker than it would be, but I have absolutely no issues on this pull as an aldrachi, reaver, vengeance demon hunter without Spirit Bomb. I'm going to go into the first 3 mobs, use Fracture Soul Cleave. I'm going to hunt, cancel my hunt on the right pack, throw Reaver's Glaive on the back pack, and then Fiery Brand the left pack. I'm going to be Feldeving really late, and as soon as you see all the mobs start to run in, I'm immediately going to use Sigil of Chains very early into Fiery Sigil. The reason why I do this so late is to get my Fiery Brand spread and to get my first Fiery Sigil on every single mob. You'll see that I have unlimited threat and I'm going to be doing a ton of damage. You can replicate this with any comp and I promise you it'll work. I have a pretty funny clip of Bond on his Elemental Shaman being kind of surprised and amazed that I was able to hold threat off him doing 30 million on this pull using this exact pull cadence. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and walk through. Again, we're going to go into the first pack here. Fracture, Soul Cleave, Hunt, Cancel, throw Glaive, Fiery Brand, getting it together, Feldev, Sigil of Chains, Fiery Sigil, and now everything's together. I can Nova early into Elysian Decree, and now I'm going to be Silent Sigiling out. The reason why I do this here is to make sure that I can capture every single one of the kicks. We did have a problem though, as the aug did hit upheaval and kind of mess up the Silent Sigil, so we did actually end up losing my Silent Sigil's capability in this pull. You notice too that this pull is a little bit harder without a Balanced Druid. There's no Boomkin in here for Vortex or Solar Beam, but we were able to get through this pull no problem. So see that even without Spirit Bomb, I have no issues holding threats, and on the left-hand side of my screen, you can see that my Death Knight did not even use Shadow Meld despite doing 30 million DPS. Kinda crazy, but I think this is just to illustrate too that you really just don't need Spirit Bomb or Demon Surge to get through some of these crazy pulls with proper planning. On this first boss, there's nothing really too crazy to kind of talk about, but I will show you a couple tricks in what I do to making sure that we have the minimum amount of platinum plating uptime on the boss. As when he does have platinum plating, you're going to see a 30% damage decrease on him. For every one of the tank busters, I would make sure you absolutely respect them with alternating things like Fiery Brand, Devastation, and Metamorphosis. As soon as the boss spawns, I strategically time a Fiery Sigil to kind of pop as soon as they land to get a little bit of initial snap threat, just to make sure nobody gets meleeed. And now I'm just doing my single target rotation and putting the bulk of my damage into the Platinum Pummeler. The reason why I particularly do this is building frailty on this boss is going to deal with the tank buster on here, and for each one of these tank busters, I'm going to have something rolling outside of the first. Remember that if you are tracking your Metamorphosis procs from our tier set, you don't really have to overlap anything with them, and this for some reason is a fight where I get a ridiculous amount of Hunt resets and Metamorphosis procs. Due to the ticking damage, etc., it makes it pretty easy for me to be able to get through this. I do actually get a almost perfect timer there on the platinum pummeler, and I was trying to also get out the little guy from the stairs. What I mean by that is if you actually target the first fixate from No Mercy for you, you can actually get a third mob in this fight, which increases the funnel on this boss. This third mob does absolutely nothing, and its only particular purpose is for an achievement. However, if you are playing with an Arcane Mage or Ellie Shaman, getting this little mob down isn't a huge DPS increase for them, as they are going to be able to funnel their damage. You'll see here that I am rotating the boss around the map to make sure that I can get them into this hammer whenever he has the platinum pummeler. I do a pretty good job here at getting the stun off anywhere between 1 to 5 seconds after the debuff goes up. So strategically, as soon as that phase is done and I break his shield, I'm moving on to the next hammer. Your entire prerogative on this fight as a tank is making sure that you're able to move the boss in a way that is consistent for your DPS players, to make sure that they're not getting and running into bombs, and as well making sure that you get that hammer lined up with that debuff. Again, make sure you're respecting each one of these tank busters no matter what key level you're on, as it's going to be good practice as you kind of move up. I did actually miss that hammer a couple seconds early, and now we're going to get the platinum plating again, so this one was a little late, but I do manage to cue the hammer here and cancel it mid ground pound. I would recommend that on this boss you're still using Fracture Soul Cleave as opposed to Soul Cleave Fracture for your combo on Reaver's Glaive, as you are hitting 2 targets, but if you do have a lot of hunt resets, it won't really matter which order of operations you do, as both are completely acceptable and your damage should be fine. Once I move around the map enough, I'm going to have to do a big move here, meaning that my frailty is going to drop, and I want to make sure that I don't move too much without stopping to hit the boss. Remember, as mentioned, Demon Hunter, as soon as you stop hitting the boss, your frailty is going to drop, and you're going to be in a little bit more danger than you normally would. I'm timing right here on this big move to make sure that I can break the platinum plating right as the boss kind of puts it in, and I get it right in the perfect time that my Arcane Mage sends his Arcane Surge. The boss is getting melted right now, and we're on track to have a really good split. Notice at this point in the key, we are having a pretty easy time. There have been no instances yet, and as well, I'm just able to hit the boss fully, build some frailty, and practice my single target rotation. A trick on this boss that I think not a lot of people commit to is they use Metamorphosis too late. On the next pull in the dungeon, I'm going to be showing you how to skip the first drill in the dungeon and only play one battle drill for the entirety of this run. What you are going to need though is Metamorphosis and Fiery Brand. You can commit Fiery Brand pretty late on this pull, as you're going to need to do it for the skip. Having Feldev, Fiery Brand, Metamorphosis, and Last Resort if you can, which you probably should, but sometimes the mistakes do happen. If you don't need it, are going to be helpful on this next gather. I'm going to pause the video really quickly as I get up here and illustrate and kind of talk about why we skip this drill. These drills are extremely inefficient count. Playing one of these drills is the equivalent to playing one fire dog in the next area, so what we're going to be trying to do in this route is skipping this drill using Shadow Meld and then playing one drill with the entire hallway. You're probably familiar with skipping the third drill, but probably maybe not this first one, and I'm going to show you the exact kind of order that you need to do to make sure you can't skip it. If you haven't practiced the skip before, it might be good to practice it on Mythic 0, and as well, you're going to need one class with a CC capability, such as Lightning Lasso, such as Asphyxiate from Death Knight, Capacitator Totem, or something else that can fear or stun or stop the gunk at the bottom of the stairs. Because you're going to be up here and your team's going to run into the tunnel, they're going to have to deal with the mob in the door, and it can start meleeing and killing your team. As you'll see here, I'm going to fly up on the side, and I'm going to let my team move up a little bit. I'm going to throw Glaive and taunt it, put Immo Aura up, and I'm going to put up my Demon Spikes. I guess I don't even Immo Aura here. Jump once, jump twice, and you can see that this gunk in the doorway is already asphyxiated. Again, this is not my responsibility here, but as a team, we agreed that I would be doing the skip from the processing unit, and my team would be CCing this gunk. As soon as I get that second leap, you are going to see me hit Shadow Meld here in a second, and now I'm going to be building on this gunk and pulling the entire hallway. As soon as I pull this gunk, I hit it with Fracture Soul Cleave, I Feldev on the rest of this trash, I hit Fiery Brand here on the drill to get a little bit of threats, and I'm pulling in all these mobs with Glaive. Again, you'll see here that I still am only just now using my first Fiery Sigil, and that's super important. The second thing to note is I haven't yet used Metamorphosis. Again, a mistake I see a lot of people make is they use Fiery Brand and Meta at the exact same time, and then by the end of these pulls they are dry and then they just cheat and die. Especially in these pulls when you're dealing with something as difficult as the waste processing unit, and this pull as well, where multiple corrosive gunks can go off and easily cheat you or kill you at the same time because you might not be able to heal them up. Making sure that you're appropriately spreading out your defensives is going to be really helpful to you. You'll see now that my leasing decree is down. I'm getting ready to pop my second fiery sigil for threats, and I'm calling for stops. I press misery, I'm waiting on my hunt, kind of as soon as I have a global here, and now we're just stopping during the mega drill. As soon as the mega drill cast is done, we're going to let these corrosive gunks go off. The reason why is we don't have unlimited stops to be able to deal with them, and we need to make sure that we can kind of get through this pack. Unfortunately, I get really unlucky and take all of the gunks as well as my team, but I do get pain sup from my healer, and we are able to get through the rest of this pull. In this composition, with the augmentation, evoker, and arcane mage, our prio damage is actually insane, and that drill died really fast. At this point here, all we're kind of doing is killing off these gunks and stopping them. Remember that you can use any sort of stop on these gunks if you want to delay them, or you can choose to let them go if your healer has a lot of healing. Remember, there is a chance that this gunk debuff can go on you as a tank, and it's going to be pretty hard to heal up if you are not in Feldev or Metamorphosis or have Fiery Brand running. You can health pot out of it, but usually Fracture Soul Cleave or even Spirit Bomb can get you out of a pretty tricky mess here. I am pulling the rest of these gunks, and we're going to be pulling 3 dogs and then pulling the boss. Because we skipped the first drill, remember now we have to play every single dog in this room, but that's okay as we do have a Disc Priest, and it should be pretty easy. I think fighting one of these dogs is way easier than fighting the drill, and it saves an absolute ton of time because you can chain these however you like. However, fighting multiple drills can be really hard on your tank, your healer, and your DPS sculling stops during their CDs. There's nothing too special or particular about this trash as a tank, but make sure that because you are still fighting a junk that, you have appropriate CD and defensive rotation, as if the gunks do go off, you can take a lot of damage. We do set up a skull on these dogs because when you're playing with an arcane mage as a demon hunter, you want to be building and making sure that you're spending your reaver glaive on the same target that they're hitting. If they're hitting their arcane surge on a target that you're not hitting, they're absolutely going to pull threat, and they're probably going to die and then flame you and then be mad and then break your key. However, this shouldn't really be too much of a problem because even if you're doing a very regular rotation without a ton of damage or metamorphosis, just hitting your Reaver's Glaive targets with Soul Cleave Fracture, if you are playing a Soul Crush build, is going to be a ton of priority and single target damage. I don't think you guys are going to have any issues with it. If you are playing with an Arcane Mage and have had problems, I would recommend using my build and recommend using the Fracture Soul Cleave combo on those mobs to build a little bit more single target threats if you haven't already. Since they've changed Kujo, this fight is really obnoxious, because you now have to hide behind the box completely as opposed to being able to safe spot it as a tank. One of the things you're going to notice here is that I am a little bit more conservative in the use of my defensive cooldowns. Whenever I come out of a hide, I no longer have frailty on the boss. When I don't have frailty on the boss, these tank busters are going to hit me quite a bit harder than I would normally be used to. Other than that, there's nothing too special here or fancy from a tank perspective, and you should be able to get through this boss just okay. Would recommend still committing and alternating Fiery Brand, Fell Devastation, and Metamorphosis when thinking about these tank busters. There's absolutely no reason to hold on to these things, and if you need to press them and just alternate them to be safe, I would absolutely recommend doing so. You could see there that I Metamorphosis that one, and I'm going to get Fiery Brand back up for the one outside of this. I did get a pain sup here as opposed to actually hitting my Fiery Brand, but I should have just hit Brand as the tank buster comes up a little bit later. Your healer should not need their externals on this fight, so don't be afraid to call for them if you are in communication with them or shoot them a ping. Remember, respect this boss because, like I said, now it kind of sucks just because you can't hide behind the box and build for LT. You constantly have to be moving in and out of this box, and it's very frustrating from a tank and DPS perspective. I found it even kind of problematic for some of my healers who, like Disc Priest, they atonement heal and they need to be hitting the boss, but you'll see that I move out from the box there, and I hit Fiery Brand. My biggest tank tip on this boss is making sure that you're consistent with your movement outside of the box. You'll see that I always try to go right when leaving the box side, and that's because I want my team to all have maximum uptime. If you're consistent with your movement as a tank, your DPS are going to trust you a lot. And you'll see here that wherever, I don't say that I'm going somewhere, I'm going to ping. The reason why I want to ping is even 1 or 2 seconds, like going the wrong way outside the hide, you're going to see here in a second, right? Like we're going to leave the box and look where we go. We all go to the right. That's because I'm telling my team in communication we're all going to go right out of the box so they can go right in and attack the boss. Otherwise, people are split, they're not going to be able to hit the boss for a couple seconds, and this boss is just going to take longer naturally. That can be very frustrating, and again, it's literally useless to not do that. So it's just a small tanking tip. Just make sure you ping where you're going, so your DPS and healer can, hit the boss earlier outside these hides, and you could save, 5, 10, 15 seconds on this boss. In the grand scheme of things, 5, 10, or 15 seconds can be the difference between you timing and not timing key. So, again, little tip, and hopefully that helps you a little bit. As this boss goes down to 20%, I don't really have to think too much about my tank defensives. I'm not really worried about the dogs from a tank perspective. I don't think that they do enough damage to really worry about talking about, but one thing to note is you should still be ending this boss with a Reaver's Glaive. The Reaver's Glaive does have increased range and is going to help you tag and get together the next pull. If you're not doing this route, this next pull should still probably be pretty normal for you, as the whole issue with it is you're going to be playing like 6 dogs, and in our case we're going to be doing 7 because we skipped the drill. And if you do, make sure that you just have a little bit of threat on gather, as your DPS might be saving defense or offensive CDs to kind of blow this pack up, and your healer is going to be on a timer for how long they can actually sustain the group. You'll see here that I have my Reaver's Glaive. I'm going to tag the very far back dogs with the Reaver's Glaive. For the range, there are 2 glaives at the right, Fiery Brand, and here I'm going to go into Feldev, Fiery Sigil, and again, start rolling my regular rotation. My healer calls for me to dark early, and I do, and now I'm pretty much just doing my regular button rotation. Keeping Immora up when I have a global and I've built enough frailty, hitting my Reaver's Glaive on CD, and making sure I fracture Soul Cleave. I kind of saved my Reaver's Glaive there for the end because one of the mobs is going to die, and I wanted to be able to apply Reaver's Glaive to my new target. Again, when you're playing with an Arcane Mage, make sure that you kind of look at and see if anything's high threat or you're hitting the same mob that they are, because you might be struggling with threat issues if you don't. As this pack dies, I notice our timer is good, and I'm going to be getting up here as quick as I can to start the next RP in the dungeon. If you haven't done this before, you can Demon Leap up this conveyor belt by just double jumping, going over, and pressing the button. I'm going to be pressing the button so my team can get through, and immediately going over and starting the roleplay from the kind of alarm bot in here. And I'm going to be pulling some extra mobs just for some funnel. I pull the alarm bot, I Fiery Brand on it for no particular reason other than to get it spreading here, because I don't have a healer with me or my team. And you're going to see that as soon as all these mobs come in, I'm going to taunt the front guard, I'm going to Fiery Sigil everything in the back, kick one, and then we're going to be gripping into a pressing roar, and then silent sigil. Again, there's nothing too deadly here from a tank perspective. You can pretty much just follow your single target rotation and have a pretty easy time. I wouldn't overcomplicate it. I think one of the things that I do see some people here struggle with is the gather, as mobs are not going to stack together. I think the easiest thing you could do is just save a glaive, Fiery Brand a target that you're not on, and make sure that again you fire sigil when everything's together. If your DPS do pop, kind of big CDs as things are getting grouped, it's going to be hard for you to kind of recover, so make sure that you're paying careful attention to where things are coming from. Kick when you can, and use your stops if you see that there are no kicks available from your team. In this pool, you should particularly be hitting the MK3 defense bot, as it does have the most health. You can see that our Arcane Mage is going to be sending its damage on it, and it has about 100 million and change more than the other bots on the ski level. So make sure that, kind of your imperative is, if your Arcane Mage is sending on 3, then maybe you swap targets, but you could also be needing to just simply build threat on the bot 3 as well. So I actually kind of make a mistake here. I don't really know why I swapped early, but I should be sending my Reaver's Glaive right into 3 early and then just staying on it. I don't think there's any particular rhyme or reason why I swapped. I think I just probably was chatting in Discord and didn't pay attention. As the bot 3 dies, I'm going to be swapping to the other high one, throwing my Reaver's Glaive into it and putting any damage in because I want this pack to die even. This is the first time I'm going to see what happens next, but our mage actually goes and pulls the friendly mobs up the stairs, or the unfriendly mobs, for a little bit of funnel into this mini boss. Doesn't really do too much, but Again, there's no really tank scarce buttons here or tank busters, so kind of whatever. We pull these mobs in and we're back to just hitting our single target rotation. One thing to note, and from an M+ strategy perspective, we're kind of deliberate in how we send our CDs here and how we hold our CDs. You're going to see the scariest pull in the entire dungeon is coming up next, where we pull the trash pull at the top of the Machinist Garden encounter right into the boss. The reason why we're doing that is we have saved Bloodlust for this pull. What we find standard now in Operation Workshop is that everybody is playing 3 Bloodlust as opposed to 4. The timer is 32 minutes, however, the Bloodlust we find is all better used on the Machinist Garden as that fight can be kind of deranged. There are saw blades that spawn, people can get randomly gibbed, and there's a chance that you just lose to a little bit of RNG. The easiest way to prevent that is make that boss go quicker and smoother, and as well we can pull trash into it, saving us an entire trash pull in the dungeon. As this tank comes to an end, we're starting to think about what's coming up next, and we're going to have all our CDs going into the Machinist Garden. Our Death Knight has Unholy Frenzy coming up, we have Power Infusion, Arcane Surgeon 30, and I'm just waiting for my Immora to fall off to not pull this Mechagon Citizen. The maze can be kind of annoying if you're not really quick with it, but I do kind of luck out here, and we actually all managed to get through the maze pretty quick. This saves us a ton of time, as all of us getting through the maze in one go actually, sets us up really nice for this key. No time lost. I'm going to be tagging this pull with Fiery Brand in a second. We talk about maybe Pauline, a defender, but my mistake is I actually Fire Sigil and break it. I think my Fire Sigil is not going to hit it, but it does. So I go into Feldev, and again, now we're pulling the boss. This is extremely hectic, and you see here, I immediately grip into silence so that we can start moving around the mobs around the room. We do have a defense shield in this boss, we have a kick, and we need to worry about blowing up the plant that spawns. I'm trying not to move the boss into the defense beam, but unfortunately here, the defense kind of shell was pulled or planted at a very weird area right between the boss and the plants. So now we're cleaving everything down in Bloodlust, and you can see our Arcane Mage is absolutely piping the boss. We do decide to leave that plant up so we can get most of our damage out in Lust and not have to swap, but now we have to make sure that we're rotating kicks on the Stinkerer and making sure that our team is getting some sort of adequate stops on the tune-up. If the tune-up cast kind of finishes, you're going to have these defense bots live forever, and these debuffs are going to start to really hurt. Again, I would not recommend doing this pull if your team is not in comms or in coordination, unless it's an absolute Hail Mary and you need to do it to time the key. Again, this is a huge time save, saving you potentially up to like a minute and a half by not having to fight that trash back on its own and bringing Funnel into the boss with Lust. However, it can be pretty hectic. At this point, everything's almost dead, and we do have the shield generator active. One of the things that you're going to see towards the end of this boss fight, and you're going to see throughout this fight, is that our healer has a mob MC'd, which is marked Moon next to my ability timeline on the right hand side of my screen. That mob is going to be putting down the defense shield, which we're going to be using for the double drill in the next pull. You can also stand in the shield generator on this fight and actually just eat saw blades without them killing you. It's actually really cool to be able to utilize it, but it is an added level of danger is if your priest messes up their MC, which you're going to see here towards the end of the fights, or the shield goes off like you saw at the start of the fight where we might have lost some damage in Bloodlust. It can be a little bit of a loss, but we want to make sure that we're killing off this plant here as they spawn and then sending the rest of our damage into the boss when we can. You do have tank privilege on this fight and can definitely greed and live saw blades if you want to just like sit there and hit the boss a little bit, but I wouldn't recommend eating anything else. Remember, I haven't cheated yet in this dungeon, and I don't really want to for any particular reason. I don't want to be greedy enough and kind of arrogant enough to just blow my cheat death on this boss just because I want to get a hunt proc off or hit the boss. You should still be moving, and most importantly too, moving the boss away in which is kind of conductive of your team having the most uptime. Remember, you're going to see that whenever a plant spawns or dies, a lot of those orange circles are going to spawn on the ground. So if you have a little bit of good short-term memory, you should be playing the boss in a position where there hasn't been a plant spawn yet. When there's no plant spawned in that area, you're going to have the lowest chance of getting those fiery red circles on the ground, which you can kind of see in the top right-hand screen of my door right now. We never want to tank the boss there because that's going to be the highest chance that our team dies to the swirlies. We've now been in combat for 3 minutes and 10 seconds, and the boss is almost dead. I call to make sure that we kill the very last plant here as I hit the Chaos Nova on it. You should have Chaos Nova for every single plant spawn almost. And then after that, the boss is going to be dead. Whenever I need to gap fill, I'm just throwing a glaive at the boss and making sure that I respect all the mechanics on the ground. You'll see right here, we play some insane levels of 3D chess to kind of get through, and I do drop all my frailty and get hit by a glaive. So I'm going to pause here for a sec and show you guys just for fun kind of what happens. So we do have that mob mind controlled for the power generator shield, and our healer ends up kind of dropping it here so that I can taunt it, and immediately I think it melees him for like 13 mil. But we do lose our healer right off the bat here. Boom. Which kind of sucks, but we were fortunate enough to not have pulled the second spider tank yet. Our healer is pulling and emceeing that mob, and we are pulling the second spider tank. When you're fighting these spider tanks, you want to be killing the second one, the one at the top of the stairs, as that one's going to enable the RP, meaning all your damage should go into the top tank, the one I've marked skull. One mistake we did make here is that we did not push out the defender. Our AUG left it, and I did not chains it. I changed it way too late, so now the spider tank is taking 80% reduced damage in the shield. Unfortunate as it was during the end of Arcane Surge, so we did lose a little bit of time here, but you can see now our team is all stacked in the shield generator, taking absolutely no damage. This is a cool trick that takes a little bit of practice, but if you can pull off the shield generator trick, this drastically reduces the HPS requirement needed on these pulls. Remember, you can only really do this with Disc Priest, I think, unless you want to keep the defender permanently CC'd during the boss fight, which can be kind of troublesome, which you can do with Cage, you can do with Paralysis. Sleepwalk would be kind of deadly, maybe Polymorph, but we do manage to get through this pull okay. We do have 9 minutes for the rest of the dungeon, which I do think is enough time. As you've probably seen, I do have a video on my channel of how to do the skip at the end of this dungeon to make sure we don't have to play the last pack, but we still have to play the MK3 defense bots with the hallway here. There's nothing particularly challenging from a tank perspective about this pull. I do throw glaive, I do hit fiery brand, fel dev, and make sure that I sustain myself a little bit here in the gather, and we are calling kicks. I would always recommend just hitting an immediately early sigil of chains as soon as you see the shield generators go down, as again, any mobs inside those shield generators are going to take a drastically reduced amount of damage. So far in the key, we only have 1 death, and I would like to keep it like that because on plus 18 at our current gear, the last boss fight's going to be close to or maybe above 6 minutes. We need all the time that we can get in this otherwise pretty tight key. We've had no mistakes yet, but we are playing with that augmentation evoker. Last Tuesday, Aug was buffed to actually increase its personal damage quite a bit, and it actually does quite a bit of damage now altogether. Remember, the power behind Aug's not always been its personal damage, it's amplifying the damage profiles of other classes. When augmentation was meta in Dragonflight, the reason why it was so good is the Fire Mage Shadow Priest column synergized insanely well together with Aug. That you had insane prio damage from Shadow Priest and Fire Mage when dealing with Funnel, and Aug basically just took all that damage and amplified it and made it better. We were trying out this comp for fun, and we didn't know what the damage profile was going to be, but Aug Arcane Mage Prio is very good, and Aug Unholy DK AoE is very good as well. As you can see, and you've probably seen the video on my channel, I go ahead and pull all this to the side with Misery. I leap once, I leap twice, I Shadow Meld, and I'm in the boss room. I don't hesitate at all, I walk right into the boss, I Fiery Brand, I Sigil, I Glaive, I Fracture, I Soul Cleave. At this point, I've done everything that I can in this dungeon to enable my team to reach success. Remember, I pulled off the drill skip, I was able to pull the entire first pull with no threat issues, no aggro issues, or no bomb detonates going off. I was able to group and pull all the dogs together. We were able to flawlessly perform the Machinist Garden without a single death, and making sure that I was able to tank competently that pull in the boss, and now my time as a tank in this key is going to come to an end. On this fight, all I'm pretty much doing is trying to maximize my DPS, calling darkness or using darkness when I think that my team is struggling a little bit, and as well making sure I don't fall off the ledge. I make that joke because I have seen some really awesome clips of Vengeance Demon Hunters falling off the cliff in this boss in the second phase. I'm going to show you a trick in how to use Hunt on this fight and how to make sure you don't fall off the edge. The problem is that Hunt's going to propel you forward in the second phase and can launch you just off the edge and just kill you. You'll see that occasionally here too, I do stand in the frontal beams even when they're not on me. The reason why particularly I do this is going to increase the amount of Hunt procs I generate from my tier set over the fight. There's not a lot of melee damage on this fight, not a lot of damage altogether, and I still have cheap death and metamorphosis, so if I need to take an extra beam or two, it's more than fine, as it's going to increase my single target damage quite a bit. You'll see that even right now my single target's pretty high, but I haven't really gotten that many Hunt procs. I'm hoping that I get a couple here, but again, I need to be eating those beams as much as I can to get those Hunt resets. As I get one right there, I do manage to hit my glaive, I get my Hunt, and now I'm hoping for another one. I guess it's a good time to talk about Aug. We are playing with Brisky, who you've probably seen in some of my past videos and on my channel before. Brisky's a good friend of mine and loves augmentation as a spec. Don't take this video as Aug is meta, don't take this video as Aug is required to do this key, because Aug has been completely gutted in its group utility. All Aug does now is provide obsidian scales, which is a very small amount of armor. It's like a 3% DR. Just against physical damage, and as well only provides Ebb and Might now to your DPS players. A lot of their damage is now around personal damage, and about, I think 60% of it is personal and the other 40 is group. Although Aug still has good utility and does bring good damage, it's nowhere close to the best DPS specs in the game. It is viable, it is playable, but you can take a sigh of relief in knowing that Aug is not meta right now, and I don't think it's going to be played in the highest keys. However, it is going to be viable. You'll see here that I do get up close to the edge, and I do get that proc right away. However, I'm waiting to Hunt until I can get into a fair position. You'll see here I move up to the ledge, I hit Hunt right on the yellow ending of the platform, and now I do have 2 stacks of Mega Zap for more Hunt procs. We are in Bloodlust, so I am hitting everything right now, so I really want as many Hunts as possible. But remember, I'm only going to hit them as I get another one there if I'm really close to the edge. I do not want to hit Hunt procs if I'm behind that yellow line, as there's a chance it could launch me off the edge and I can simply just die. I should be hitting attack mode here in my trinket, but I also just got this trinket this week, so I'm a little bit lazy with it and haven't really mastered it yet. I do get hit by an orb there, but I'm in meta, so it's fine. I throw my glaive and I am ready to commit that Hunt. As that Hunt goes off, you can see on the yellow line that I get in the boss range and we're more than okay. At this point in the dungeon, like I said, there's nothing really from a tank perspective I need to worry about. I'm just pretty much doing single target damage where I can, trying to eat a couple beams for those Hunt procs, and as well just communicating with my team if they need anything from me. I'm usually the de facto shot caller in a lot of my groups, so I'm usually calling and asking what we need for defensives. Clemens is very vocal as well and is an exceptionally good healer, so if he's ever struggling or behind, he'll usually say something. As the timer gets down to 2 minutes left in the key and the boss at 40%, I'm starting to think that we're pretty safe. However, any 1 or 2 deaths here could set us behind and could put us in a position where we could lose the key. Remember, on plus 18, these key timers aren't exactly free, but we will see next week with an increase to our gear that this changes quite a bit. Chances are you're going to see videos on this channel of me probably doing, plus 19, 20, even 21 in certain keys, because we are going to be up like 10 item levels. I think overall this is a really fun tanking key because there's a couple challenging areas and a lot you can do to enable your team, but it's not really challenging from a tank buster perspective. I would say that the first pull is really hard, and the drills can be very problematic. However, outside of that, you're going to have a pretty easy time in this key as a tank, but there are a lot of things you can do to make your group really favor you and thank you for being a good player. There's a drill skip, there's a first pull gather, and the skip at the end where if you pull off all of those 3, you're going to look like an all-star in your pugs. I would recommend, again, making sure you don't do the drill skip though unless you practiced it or have communicated to your team in advance about what they need to do. Remember, skipping the drill, you do need somebody with a reliable CC for the bottom so they don't get meleeed by those gunks. I think we do have one death here at the very end of the ski, but it is okay as the boss at 100 mil. Brisky does get zapped, just get killed through scales, which is kind of funny. But we do make some jokes from laughing in Discord about the buyer throwing the key, so. As King Mechagon comes down, we do have 50 seconds left in the key, and we do have enough time to complete this dungeon. Again, I found this one pretty fun, and hopefully this was useful for you in your journey to title, or if you're learning VDH, or actually just wanted some tanking tips in this key. If there's anything you think I missed, or would like more of this kind of content, feel free to drop something in the comments, and I'll do my best to kind of get to it as I can, as I do play multiple specs. Thanks again for the support, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.